Hello fellow coffee botherers, I'm Kev from coffeeblog.co.uk, and in this video, due to popular demand, I'm going to be comparing the Cayer Bambino Plus with the Gaggia Classic Pro 2019. So these are two completely different kinds of machines. They're different genres of machines really, and I wouldn't usually compare this machine to this machine because it's like comparing apples with bananas or apples with bongo drums. I mean, they're just so different. They occupy different genres. The Gaggia Classic is in the genre of machines such as the Rancilio Silvia and the Lily Anna, and it'd make more sense to compare this machine with them. The Cayer Bambino Plus, as I'll discuss in this video, is in a genre all of its own. It's completely different to machines like this, but I'll get onto that shortly. So that's why I haven't naturally done a comparison in the past, but people keep asking me because many people are thinking about either the Gaggia Classic or the Cayer Bambino Plus because they occupy a similar kind of price point. The Classic is about 100 quid more RRP wise, but they are completely different machines, and I'll explain that. The best analogy I can think of to get across my opinion of the difference between these two machines, or the genres that these two machines are in, is to talk about cars. If we were to take a reliable, robust workhorse utility machine like the Land Rover Defender, this machine is tried and tested. It's known to be mega reliable, and anyone with some basic understanding of mechanics will be able to tinker with a machine like this over the years themselves, or relatively inexpensively to use, a local garage, and keep a machine like that on the road for decades. Now imagine that someone like Tesla released a vehicle in a similar class. Let's imagine this car is a little bit cheaper but has some really great features like automation. This car doesn't feel quite as solid as a Defender, and unlike with the Defender, someone with a bit of general mechanical know-how wouldn't be able to pop the hood and tinker with this car. You probably have to be a computer scientist or rocket engineer or both in order to tinker with a car like this yourself. It'd have to go back to main dealer if it needed repair or maintenance. So let's imagine that this car is ridiculously user friendly. The features of this car make it really beginner friendly. In terms of performance, the Defender would be capable of better performance in the hands of an expert than the more modern, slightly cheaper car. But this more modern machine would perform at a similar level to the Defender in the hands of a complete novice because of the clever features. But while the Land Rover Defender will be relatively cheap and simple to maintain and repair even outside of the warranty period, the other model would need returning to a dealer in order to carry out maintenance and repair, which would become expensive outside of the warranty period. And as a result of that, this car would be unlikely to hold its value outside of the warranty period once the warranty expires as much as a car like the Land Rover Defender. And this is basically what we have with these two machines, only it's a bit more severe than that in terms of what happens to these machines outside of the warranty period. These machines aren't really made to be maintained and repaired. Outside of the warranty period, once they stop working, it's not financially viable given the low cost of the machine to repair it. So these machines are really made to be semi-disposable. You've got them for the length of the warranty period, which is usually 2 years. Once it stops working outside that 2 years, so it could be just after the warranty period expires, it could be 3, it could be 4, but once that happens, really, you're gonna have to replace the machine. There's a minimum cost of returning Cayer machines for repair outside of the warranty period, with no guarantee of success. So you're paying to get the machine back to Cayer or Breville and for them to look at it without any guarantee of getting it back working again. And from what I've heard, the minimum cost of returning the machines back to Cayer or Breville to look at is about 2/3 of the cost of a new Cayer Bambino Plus. And given that you can sometimes on offer get them new for 2/3 the RRP, it really doesn't make much sense if that's the case. If I'm wrong, apologies, but that is what I've been told by a couple of people who have had to return machines to Cayer or Breville outside of the warranty period. So that is the major difference between these two machines, and that's why I say that the Cayer Bambino Plus occupies its own genre. There are other lower cost machines that are made to be semi-disposable, but none of them are in quite the same league, in my opinion, as the Sage Bambino Plus in terms of the shot quality and in terms of the features, which is why I say the Sage Bambino Plus is in a genre of its own. It's semi-disposable like other cheaper home espresso machines, but it has the same kind of performance capabilities as machines like the Gaggia Classic, which is what puts it in its own genre. So this is a major difference between these two machines. This is a machine like the Land Rover Defender that anyone with a little bit of mechanical ability, not me, but anyone who can tinker with mechanics can easily keep this going for years and years. And as I said, parts are easily accessible. They really are built to last. They're serviceable, repairable. And by the way, I'll put a link in the description to Gaggia UK, who are the UK distributor of Gaggia machines, and they handle all the UK warranty for the Gaggia Classic and the other Gaggia machines. And you can pay them to maintain and repair your Gaggia Classic or other Gaggia machine outside of the warranty period. That's what I've done with my original Gaggia Classic. They're inexpensive, they're really, really good. And if you don't have some basic mechanical experience or confidence, like I don't, you can just send your machine once a year or so to be serviced and maintained by Gaggia direct. So I'll start off by talking about the pros of the Gaggia Classic Pro versus the Sage Bambino Plus. And the first one, as I've just discussed, is reliability and longevity. These machines are really built to last. They're built to be maintained and repaired and serviced, and parts are really easily accessible. I would expect, with a bit of care and maintenance, to see this machine still going strong in 10, 20 years versus these machines that are made with great features, but they're made with a focus on features and user friendliness as opposed to longevity and reliability over the years. These are really made, as I said, to last the warranty period, and after that, as I said, it doesn't really make sense financially to invest in repairing them. So that's longevity and reliability, a pro for the Gaggia Classic versus the Sage Bambino Plus. The next one is shot quality or potential shot quality. The Sage Bambino Plus is capable of really good shot quality actually for such an inexpensive machine, and with a low cost entry level grinder like the Sage Smart Grinder Pro or Dose Control Pro. And if you want more information on the grinders I'd recommend for these machines, go to coffeeblog.co.uk/grinders, because I've done reviews on the machines that I'd recommend, the entry level grinders. But with a machine like the Smart Grinder Pro or the Dose Control Pro or the Breville MC2, I would expect a similar shot quality from both these machines, but where the Gaggia Classic comes into its own is when paired with a more capable grinder. So if you wanted to invest in a more expensive, higher level, going towards commercial end grinder, like for example the Niche Zero, which click the link here to see the review for that, you will get, in my humble opinion, with a better grinder, you'll get better espresso with the Gaggia Classic. You need to pair the Classic with a higher level grinder to get better results than you could get with something like the Sage Bambino Plus with a lower level grinder. I wouldn't expect to be able to elevate the shot quality with the Sage Bambino Plus with a better grinder as you can with the Gaggia Classic. So in terms of potential shot quality with a higher level grinder, if you decide to invest in a more expensive grinder, I think the Gaggia Classic Pro wins that one in terms of potential shot quality. Another pro for the Gaggia Classic Pro is heftiness, for want of a better word. It is a similar sized, it's slightly bigger, but not all that much bigger machine to the Bambino Plus, but it's quite a bit heavier. When you're locking and unlocking the portafilter on the Sage Bambino Plus, it's really easy. I mean, you can see how easy it is to move the espresso machine on your worktop. So you have to get into the habit of holding the Bambino Plus with one hand and operating it, locking and unlocking the portafilter with the other, otherwise it just moves. Whereas with the Gaggia Classic, it's not going to move. It is quite a bit heavier, and it feels more robust, it feels more sturdy when you're using it. It's not moving all over the place when you're locking and unlocking the portafilter. Not a big deal because you get used to it. I've just used this for a week while on holiday down in Cornwall, and you just get used to holding it. It's just a little quirk of this machine. It is really lightweight, but this machine's heavier weight. It doesn't move while you're unlocking and locking the portafilter. Drip tray size is definitely a pro for the Gaggia Classic versus the Sage Bambino Plus. There's really not much space in this drip tray. If I tip it upside down, you can see that this cutaway at the bottom means it doesn't have the full capacity of the, the depth of the drip tray. There's really not that much space in this drip tray. And one of the great features I'll talk about in a minute is the auto purging, and that puts quite a bit of water into the drip tray, and you can only really pull 2 shots and steam 2 jugs of milk in between having to empty that drip tray. 2, maybe 3 at a push. If you're not careful, it comes out the overflow at the back and water starts to appear on your worktop and you realise you've let the drip tray overflow. So that is a plus with the Gaggia Classic. But these pros and cons kind of counter each other and create other pros and cons, which I'll discuss in a minute when I talk about the pros of the Bambino Plus compared to the Gaggia Classic. The steaming speed. Now, again, this is a pro, but it can create a con as well, which I'll discuss. But the Gaggia Classic produces more aggressive steam. You have more aggressive steam power. And as a result, the whole process from start to finish is probably 20 seconds quicker or so when you take into account the fact that the Bambino Plus is steam ready quicker. All told, you're probably 15-20 seconds quicker from start to finish with the Gaggia Classic versus the Bambino Plus. So there's not a great deal in it. Industry standard portafilter size is another pro for the Gaggia Classic Pro. You've got the standard 58mm portafilter with the Gaggia Classic, which means when you're looking for a tamper and leveler, bottomless portafilter, etc., these are all industry standard sizes at 58mm versus the Sage Bambino Plus, which is 57mm, which makes it difficult to get things like tampers and bottomless portafilters and different baskets and so on, because most of them come in 58mm. It's difficult to source 57mm third-party accessories. Okay, so that's pros for the Gaggia Classic versus the Sage Bambino Plus. Now let's flip it around and talk about the pros of the Bambino Plus versus the Gaggia Classic Pro. So the thing I'm going to talk about first, because it really impresses me about this machine, is low pressure pre-infusion. Pre-infusion or low pressure pre-infusion is something that you would expect, or I would expect to find on much more expensive machines. You don't get it with the Gaggia Classic and with other machines that are around this price. It's possible, but it isn't automated and it's not really simple to do. You have to mess around in order to get pre-infusion from the Gaggia Classic, which involves turning the steam valve, opening the steam valve, and then pulling the shot and then closing the steam valve. But it's a bit messy, not particularly user-friendly to do that. It's automated on the Sage Bambino Plus. So what low pressure pre-infusion is the ability to allow water to flow through the puck of coffee in your basket under low pressure. So it's not going in at the espresso pressure, it's not going in pressurized, it's just gently soaking through the puck, so that when you then ramp up the pressure and start extracting the shot, the water has already found its flow through the coffee, and this reduces the chance of channeling. And channeling is where water under pressure finds the channel of least resistance and finds channels through the puck of coffee. And channeling results in poor tasted espresso. It's probably one of the main causes of poor taste in espresso, channeling. And low pressure pre-infusion, along with taking care of how you tamp and making sure you've got a level tamp, is the best antidote to channeling. And with the Sage Bambino Plus, it's automated. When you use the volumetric shot buttons, you'll automatically get 7 or 8 seconds of pre-infusion. And if you do it manually, and there should be a link here to the video that I did on pulling shots manually with the Sage Bambino Plus. You can control the pre-infusion time. You press and hold the button and low pressure pre-infusion starts, and once you release a button, I normally do it after about 8 seconds, the pressure ramps up, your shot begins to pour, and then when you press the button again, you stop the shot. So for me, the fact that you've got automated pre-infusion and controllable pre-infusion time with a machine at this cost is amazing, and it's one of the main pros for me for this low-cost espresso machine. The next pro for the Sage Bambino Plus is 9 bars out of the box, and by that I mean that most inexpensive espresso machines, and I think most machines or all machines that I'm aware of under the Sage Bambino Plus in terms of RRP are 15 bar machines, which means they pull the shots at 15 bars of pressure. And you'll find that the manufacturers use this as a selling point. Oh, 15 bars of pressure. And some people think that the higher pressure, the better. That's not the case. The universally accepted ideal pressure for espresso machines is 9 bars. So you want a machine really for espresso at 9 bars. And those machines that are set for 15 bars, I'm not entirely sure, but I would imagine that they're set at that because it's more expensive actually to build a machine to pull shots at 9 bars than it is at 15 because of some of the components required, and probably to do with the machines that are intended to be used with pressurized baskets. I would imagine that the higher pressure works better with the pressurized baskets. Again, I might be wrong, but for home barista espresso, you really want 9 bars. And out of the box, the Sage Bambino Plus comes at 9 bars. The Gaggia Classic Pro comes out of the box at about 12 or 13 bars, I believe, for reasons I'm really not sure of. But there is a really simple mod. You can just buy one of the spring mods from shadesofcoffee.co.uk, about a tenner, and really straightforward to take the OPV out, change the spring inside. Just beware if you're doing that. I would imagine you're voiding the warranty. I'm not sure. I will ask the question of Gaggia Direct, who handled the warranty for these machines, and I'll let you know. But it is really straightforward to do. As I say, you just change the spring inside the OPV. Probably a 5-10 minute job. But you've got to hand it to the Sage Bambino Plus that it comes out of the box at 9 bars. No modding required. Price is a pro for Sage Bambino Plus if you look at it that way. And the reason I say that, it's about 100 quid cheaper. But if you work out the cost over the life of the machine per year, and this machine costs 300 quid, and lasts you 3 years, that's 100 quid a year. Obviously I'm great at maths. And the Gaggia Classic costs 400 quid, but lasts 10 years. Obviously that's 40 quid a year, maybe with a bit added to that for any repair and maintenance costs. But if you work it out based on the life of the machine, obviously it's not quite the same picture. But in terms of price of the machine, the Sage Bambino Plus is about 100 quid cheaper, 299 RRP, but you can sometimes get them on offer for around 220, 230, 250. Another pro for the Sage Bambino Plus is user friendliness, or more specifically beginner friendliness. It's ready to use within a few seconds. It'll auto steam your milk. You can simply press a button to pull the shot, and you can set the volumes of the single shot button and the double shot button, or you can do it manually. And it's got automatic pre-infusion, as I've mentioned, and you can also control the pre-infusion time really simply. So it is really, really user friendly and beginner friendly. And this beginner friendliness extends to steaming milk as well, as I mentioned earlier when talking about the pros of the Gaggia Classic. Although it might seem a con that it takes longer to steam your milk, it takes longer because it's less aggressive than with the Gaggia Classic. It does it slightly more gently, and that gives you more correction time. It gives you time to think about what you're doing and realise what you're doing wrong and correct it. You can't really do that to the same degree with the Gaggia Classic because the aeration phase, which is where you normally need to change your angle and so on, is over much quicker, and you really don't have the same amount of time to correct. You have a lot more time to correct what you're doing with the Bambino Plus, so it's more beginner friendly in terms of learning to stretch milk. And that might seem a bit daft, learning to steam milk. Surely it's just a case of sticking the wand in and pressing a button. But if you've been learning so far to texture milk for coffee, you'll know what I'm talking about. There is a real learning curve to it. I've been on that learning curve for 4 or 5 years, and I still regularly mess up the milk texture. So it is really a skill that takes time, it takes practice, and the Sage Bambino Plus is really beginner friendly when it comes to learning to texture milk as well. The auto steam purge, and this relates really to the user friendliness, but I thought I'd cover this separately because I'm really impressed with it. And that is, one thing some people forget to do is to purge the wand after steaming milk, and it's something you really do need to do. And with the Sage Bambino Plus, when you push the wand down, it automatically purges, and it purges quite a bit of water through the steam wand, so you can't forget to purge the wand. You can forget to wipe it, and you really do need to make sure you wipe the wand, but you can't forget to purge it, which I think is great. Another slight con of that though is that combined with the really small drip tray volume, you can only really use it a couple of times with an auto purge before you have to empty the drip tray. But once you get the knack of it, once you get used to having to empty the drip tray regularly, it's not really a big deal. Another pro for the Sage Bambino Plus is the steam wand position. When steaming manually, as you'll see with the steaming tutorial with the Gaggia Classic that I uploaded recently, and I'll put a link to that here, you're quite limited to your jug position because of the frame here next to the drip tray. You can only really go in this direction with the jug. You don't really have the same flexibility of the jug position. With the Bambino Plus, as you can see, you can angle it that way, you can angle it that way, depending on what feels better for you, whether you're right-handed, whether you're left-handed, etc. You don't have the same flexibility. It's fine once you get the knack of it, but you don't have the same kind of flexibility as you do with the jug position, with the Classic, as opposed to with the Sage Bambino Plus. So that's a plus for the Sage Bambino. Another plus for the Sage Bambino Plus is that it has a PID. Can't remember what it stands for, but it's a temperature controller. It keeps the temperature stable, and it's what's responsible for the fact that you can really quickly and easily go from brew temperature to steam temperature and back, because it knows where it needs to be, and it takes it there quickly and takes it back quickly in terms of the temp for steaming and the temp for brewing. You don't have to do temperature surfing and things like that you do on machines like the Gaggia Classic and the Rancilio Silvia, etc., because it's got a PID. Now you can fit a PID to the Classic, but you're talking investing another 100, 120, 150 pounds on having a PID installed, or buying a PID and installing it yourself. I would recommend that. I'm going to do another video on recommendations for people who decide to go for the Gaggia Classic Pro, and one of them is to fit a PID, because I think if you're going to invest in a machine like this, it's going to potentially last you for years and years. You might as well invest in it and make it the best you possibly can, and fitting a PID will definitely help in that regard. But out of the box, the Gaggia Classic doesn't have a PID, and the Bambino Plus, as all the Sage machines, has a PID, and as I say, that's responsible for some of the great features on the Bambino Plus. I've already mentioned this, but I will mention it separately as well as a pro, and that is the really quick transition from steam to brew temperature and back. So when you're using the Gaggia Classic, when you've pulled a shot, turn the steam on, it doesn't take all that long. I do it slightly differently, as you'll see if you've watched my milk steaming guide with the Gaggia Classic, is that I don't wait for the steam light to come on. I count for about 6 or 7 seconds and then start steaming, and I find that the boiler is starting to produce steam at that point. This machine's ready to start steaming within a couple of seconds, so you are starting steaming quicker with this machine. It is ready quicker. As I said before, overall steaming time is quicker with the Classic. It produces more aggressive steam power. But with this machine, after you've steamed your milk, you can't go straight away into pulling another shot. Your shot will be terrible if you do that. You have to get the temperature down. And the way to do that is, once the steam's been turned off, to press the shot button, and also to open the steam valve and to allow the boiler to cool down. But you don't have to do that with the Bambino Plus. It's really quick to get back to brew temperature after steaming milk, and vice versa. So that is another pro for the Sage Bambino Plus. So there you go. Hopefully that gives you a better picture of the differences between these two machines. They're both brilliant machines. I can understand why people are torn between the two, but they are two completely different machines. I'm not going to do a run through on using these two machines because I've done other videos on both of these machines, including doing a run through, pulling shots and steaming milk. So if you want to watch them videos, just click on the channel videos and have a look for the videos that I've uploaded of using these two machines. So I hope that helps. If you've liked this video, please click the like button. Cheers. And if you've not subscribed to my channel, click this image here and subscribe to my channel. Tatty bye.